Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This session is all about the artist and artificial intelligence. We'll be discussing creators' rights and the future of compensation. Artists have expressed many concerns around artificial intelligence. Intellectual property, copyright issues, could it displace jobs, devalue human creativity? There are, of course, ethical and moral concerns. And so far, not so much regulation. We'll talk about where there is. So my guest is an Egyptian-Canadian creative strategist and designer. She specializes in visual communication. She started her life in advertising and has developed award-winning campaigns. Her background in graphic design has led her to creative strategy. She recently completed a master's in Strategic Foresight and Innovation. That is a great title for a degree.
Agreed.
And your research focused on the impact of AI on graphic design. So welcome to Habiba El-Gendi. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Eddie, for that
Good.
wonderful introduction. I'm so excited to be here with such brilliant minds. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, let's dive in. So I want to start with a very practical example. Let's say I'm a client of yours and I want to create a whole campaign around promoting my services as a moderator, right? I want it to be for social media, for billboards, magazines, old-fashioned newspapers, advertisements all over. Describe to me how you would ethically use AI for this campaign, and if you weren't being so ethical, what would you do?
This is such a great question, Eddie. Thank you. First of all, I'm so excited to have you as my hypothetical client. What a dream.
Great.
First, I think let's break it down into steps. The first step is to really understand the market that you're in. For example, you're from the UK. I might not necessarily know much about the market in the UK, so I could use an LLM or an AI chatbot to learn quickly about the market in the UK, for example. I could really utilize it for that. To really set the stage for what's to come next, I would also use it to kind of conduct a thorough analysis of your target audience, your services, what you offer, and sort of develop a creative strategy for how to approach this project. So this is the first step. And then the second step is to start the ideation or inspiration phase. And here AI can have so much positive impact because I can easily sketch out certain ideas. I can use an LLM again or an AI chatbot to bounce back sort of ideas and concepts that and ensure that they resonate with your target audience. For example, if you tell me, I want to make sure that my audience, my target audience is the Gen Z, and I want to make sure that the campaign addresses that. I could really test out certain concepts using AI and make sure it aligns with that. And then when it comes to the prototyping phase, which is a super important phase for you as my client to really see and get an example of how the application of this campaign is going to be like. So I would use AI to prototype, create mock-ups, create color combinations or color palettes that go with your campaign, test out certain layouts. And you as my client will be able to see that very quickly and efficiently, and it's going to help us reach the implementation phase. And in the implementation phase, really, I wouldn't use AI to just create the whole campaign for you. I would use it more in the previous stage where I'm getting inspiration, I'm creating mood boards, I'm looking at possible layouts that I could create. But then when it comes to the implementation, it's all going to be based on these steps before that, where I'm going to gather all the steps the results of the steps that we did and reiterate and make sure to implement something that really resonates with your audience.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So that's if you were using it for positively. And what if you decided to be unethical? What does that look like?
Right.
If you're creating a campaign disregarding ethics, what does that mean?
That's a great question too. I think it really shows the contrast of not just how we can use AI positively, but also the ethical implications. So the first one is it would be used without accounting for copyright. So it would include copyright violation, for example, mimicking existing campaigns or works that I've seen from other designers or illustrators who worked so hard to establish their own styles. So I would use that to create a campaign for you without much creative kind of reflection. So that's something to be so careful about. Another thing is not fact checking. So while I'm doing this market research that we discussed and learning about your audience and the market in the UK and your services, it's so important to fact check and make sure that everything is right. Otherwise, I'd be spreading misinformation or even misrepresenting yourself or your audience. And that's something that is such a problematic thing with AI because it's trained on data sets that include biases. So by nature, they just acquire these biases from nature, from humans, and if we don't filter them out and make sure there's human oversight,
Do you have an example of that, of how a data set, which is of course going to be biased and maybe even culturally biased, how that creates a campaign which spreads misinformation?
Absolutely. So, for example, if you want to portray indigenous people in your campaign, for example, or you want to portray a certain culture. Let's say you're not doing this campaign in the UK, you're doing it in Saudi Arabia. It would have a completely different meaning, right? And so if I'm using AI, and AI has these learned biases where I'm misrepresenting the culture of, let's say, indigenous people or people here in Saudi Arabia, and I'm not honoring their traditions and cultures, and I, for example, generated an image that is culturally incorrect, has wrong historical data of some sort, maybe something as simple as the traditional outfit worn. If I use that in your campaign and then it's spread out to the world, then I have a role, then I would have played a role in spreading misinformation or misrepresentation. And so that's something as designers and even you as my client need to be aware of. And so the other thing is transparency. So when it comes to the ethical use of AI, it's so important that you as my client know every step where I use AI. I'm transparent about it as a designer. You are also aware of the responsibility that is attached to your name because it's your campaign. So that's very, very important as well.
Interesting. Talk a little bit about how artificial intelligence can pollute design. What is this idea around AI pollution?
So AI pollution really refers to the misuse or overuse of AI. So as we just discussed, this concept that AI is trained on data sets that are extremely just wide and have a lot of learned biases. If we overuse AI and we spread those images, it results in some form of visual pollution. Also, there's the aspect of originality. So if I'm constantly kind of recycling existing data or designs, it tends to create a new generic form of designs that, for example, we compare to stock imagery. So anyone who works in the creative industry knows when a stock image has been used. It's very clear versus hiring an entire team to create like a set of photo shoots for your services or your campaign. And so there's that concept of everything that we're going to start seeing, especially in an age where AI is so accessible to everyone, not just to designers who know the art of design and understand, concepts of typography and hierarchy and grid systems and layout and color. So all of these are things that are no longer going to be accounted for if there is this excessive and overuse of AI.
But do you think as AI gets better, it will be able to to use some of those things those techniques that you just mentioned, color, for example, typography, layout, that design, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, and there are tools for that, but it still requires human expertise and human oversight, because I think AI still lacks that aspect of human empathy and emotional nuances where I get to connect with you as my client. When you're briefing me, I get to experience those emotions and create work that reflects that. I get to hear your passion when you're speaking to me about your work. And that's something that AI does not have. And this is where we as humans need to really work with AI as a partner, where it just makes us more efficient. It helps us in all those things that we do. But it's still the essence of what we do as designers or artists is still within us.
Talk a little bit about copyright, because you mentioned that before. How worried should we be about copyright and artificial intelligence? And I wonder how transparent companies are being about their use of artists' imagery.
So copyright is a huge concern. It's a significant concern, and it's evolving every day and changing every day. We should be concerned because we might be unintentionally infringing on copyright materials when we're using certain AI algorithms or systems that are not ethically made. There's also not a lot of laws and regulations currently that really address this new and evolving problem. And so it's like we said earlier, when AI is trained on all of these big data sets, that might include pictures or images or illustrations that are copyrighted. And so there's this debate on whether or not it's just a derivative work and what is there's a lot of debate on originality, and of course the other aspect is transparency. As you mentioned, right now not a lot of companies are transparent. So if you were my client and I'm using certain AI bots or image generators, I need to ensure that they're ethically made to be transparent about the data sets that they use to train their systems. For example, a lot of AI kind of platforms right now use only stock images, which is a more you can ethically track them, and you know that they're made to be recreated and to create derivative works, versus an independent illustrator who doesn't want their data to be used to train AI.
And there are some lawsuits already emerging around this issue. Talk me through one and what we can learn from it.
That's correct. There's many lawsuits right now across the world that really, specifically from artists who feel that AI has infringed on their rights and have been used to create kind of exact, almost copies of their work, or slightly just different. And so they feel like it's their right to opt out of these systems. And right now, there is one big lawsuit in the US by a group of artists who are suing Midjourney and DeviantArt and Stability AI. It's an ongoing lawsuit, but it's faced many challenges because, as I said, there aren't many laws to regulate.
Interesting.
Yeah, like AI, and there's nothing that really to say what is exactly a derivative work. And so they're facing a lot of challenges. The case was dismissed, but they allowed for refiling. So right now it's still kind of an ongoing lawsuit, and we're going to see what happens. Yeah.
So it's a really important emerging issue. The EU has an AI Act. What do you think about that? Is that leading a strong example for the rest of the world?
Absolutely. So like I said earlier, this is an ongoing and very quickly changing topic. There are a lot of countries that are implementing new laws and regulations, but not enough. And recently, the European Union has implemented the EU AI Act, which is a great example. I would say it's the best kind of example for a regulatory framework out there, because it really is it addresses AI from a human-centered perspective. So it imposes certain regulations on the deployers of these systems, the users of these systems, and the developers as well. And it also assesses them based on risk. So it has a few different risk levels, and each one of those has a specific type of regulations. And so it's a great example for other countries to follow suit. And it is expected to create this type of global influence for other countries, for sure.
Okay, so let me give you another theoretical example. I'm no longer hiring you to be my personal designer for a campaign, but actually I'm Google or I'm OpenAI, and I'm coming to you as a creative, as an artist, and saying to you, okay, I'd like your advice on how we can use AI to train and create our visual campaigns. Talk to me about what kind of model of compensation or royalties or licensing agreements that you'd like them to consider as an artist, as a designer.
Thank you for bringing that up, Betty. So there are so many different compensation models right now, and there are many that can be sort of customized depending on the need. However, I do agree that we do need new fair compensation models, and for companies like OpenAI or Google, I would love for them to implement opt-in and opt-out mechanisms. So as a creative, I think every creative needs to have the right to say, I don't want my work to be included in training data, or I want it to be included in training data. And I think that's a right that all of creatives.
What would that look like? Would that sit on your website, or how would that work?
Yeah, so the thing with AI systems is they use everything that's available on the internet. So if I use Instagram as my portfolio and I have images on there, it's definitely in an AI training data somewhere right now.
Got it.
Or if I have a website where I have my work on there published, or if I use certain other kind of portfolio-based websites like Behance or DeviantArt. It just everything that's publicly shared on the internet really ends up in an AI system somewhere. But it's so important to say, no, I don't want that to be the case, and I can opt out of it somehow. I'm sure there's ways that we can make this happen, and maybe the AI developers and tech companies can help us with this. But I think this is so important. And then something else is royalty-based compensation, or pay-per-use compensation. So if my work ends up in AI systems and I'm fine with it and I consent to it, and it's used commercially to create kind of derivative works of my illustration, let's say, I think as a creative, then I deserve to have kind of a percentage or a fee to compensate me for the work that I have done to help these companies and to help these creatives or whoever used the campaign. And so royalty-based compensation is a great model. Opt-in and opt-out mechanisms are a great model. Using metadata and for attribution is extremely important.
What is metadata?
So metadata is data that is kind of attached to the image. For example, Adobe Firefly uses something called content credentials, where every time you create a new AI generated image, there is data related to just your name, like things like that, information about you as a creator attached to that. And there are ways also to track the original works that have created this derivative work as well. And so having metadata attached to these images is a great way because it allows for attribution. So if I want to credit you and give you the kind of the credit that you deserve for creating the original work, then I can easily do that as well.
Okay, we're running out of time. Give us a conclusion and give us a call to action for those. Everyone here at some point is going to want to create something with AI. What would you like them to remember as an artist? What are the biggest takeaways?
I would say that it's so important that we open this discourse, we have these conversations. This is why we're all here today, to really discuss how we can use AI ethically without losing ourselves as humans, with making sure that there's that empathetic part of where we connect as humans, connect with our clients, make meaningful work and campaigns. And so I really encourage this conversation to continue between creatives, between developers, between tech companies. I think it's so important that each one of us is involved as a stakeholder to really shape the better future for ourselves.
So co-creation, working with the AI,
exactly,
talking to each other,
using AI as a tool, the same way we use other tools, with very strong and attainable value, but also allowing us to co-create together, where AI right now allows for many more stakeholders to get involved in the picture. It's not just creatives working alone and on a desk somewhere. Now it's everyone working together and co-creating something together.
Fantastic. Habiba El-Jendi, thank you so much for joining us here at the Global AI Summit.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.